win.
You're dying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No.
The massive factory pumping gas as well, being killing the animals.
No.
I thought this was it.
I wish it made my job a lot easier. You've got some climbing to do, yeah?
Yes!
I've just waited for another group to come up to people. Well, I've got some things to do with all you guys will do the tour. So we can just stay down here and then I'll gather you together and then do a quick health and safety brief. We have to do that now and then we'll start the tour. It should take about 30 to 40 minutes or so.
There was halls above.
There was what above?
Halls. Halls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Castle's about 650 years old, and it was built by a guy who, for most of his life, he went by the name of Robert Stewart. His granddad was Robert Bruce. And when Bruce died, Bruce's son, David, he became King of Scotland. And when he died unexpectedly in 1371, Bruce's grandson, Robert Stewart, he became King Robert II. No one's ever heard of him, it's a shame. He was the very first of the Stuart kings. And after him, the Stuarts ruled Scotland first of all, the way to England and Ireland for over 300 years. Okay? The very last one was Queen Anne. She died in 1714. And even Prince Charlie, so he's a direct descendant of the boy that built this castle and had this castle built. And what he's built himself is, we think it's probably a hunting lodge. So this is a place of entertainment, one of a number that we had scattered around the country, in fact. It's also residence, they would spend some time here, and also it's a place of business. And what he's built, this type of building is called a tower house. The way a tower house works is it's one room above another, one room per floor, if you like, and the higher we go, because we've got some climbing to do, the higher status or the posher the rooms are. Okay? At the moment, where we are, it looks a little bit misleading, because it looks like we're in one huge, massive great hall. We're actually looking at two rooms at the moment. It's that lovely barrel to the ceiling, which is original, and still mortared together in most places by 650 year old mortar. So, fingers crossed, it'll last at least until the end of the tour. Especially when we're still on top of it as well. Because if you fall through, you'll have to start the tour all over again. But you've got to pretend for the moment you can't see that, because where that walkway is there, that's where the ceiling used to be for this part of the room. So bear with me, you can't see that at the moment. And at the bottom of the castle, like I said, higher we go, posher the rooms are. Ground floor, you can't get much lower than that. We're just in the cellars, that's all this was. Nothing very exciting really. It was divided up back in the day. We've lost all the internal walls. I do know, with a living memory of some of the older guys in the village, that there were little bits of wall you could still see. I've got a horrible feeling that when this floor was put in, way before my time here, they knocked down those walls to have a nice different space. So it's great. We do functions in here now. We do weddings and music events and plays and murder mysteries and Shakespeare, all sorts of stuff. But we've lost the history, which for me is a shame. But it is what it is. Can't cellars, nothing more than that. But we go see some more interesting bits. Should we see where the king used to have his dinner parties? So what's Yesterday I told someone, no one's ever called Euphemia. She said, well, my granddaughter's called Euphemia, so I won't say that anymore. She just misses. Some people say she died in the castle as well. We're not absolutely sure. It's not so maybe she did. The other thing about this boy is he fathered 21 kids. Yeah. I should say he was married twice. So they were both married before both their spouses died. But he also had bunches of girlfriends stashed around the country. He had 7 kids with his girlfriends. So, yeah. There's no Netflix in those days, remember? So that okay. So that's the boy that this built. What I get you guys to do, so the big group, if you would go up that staircase, you pop out on that walkway there. If you go along about halfway along to give us space, you'll see what I mean when we get up there, and I'll follow you guys out.
Okay. Right. Thank you.
Yeah, I quite big steps. So what I'll do is I'll give it a right.
Behind me. Remember, this is a whole other room, so this floor goes all the way across, okay? Otherwise it'll be a very thin room. So this floor goes all the way across. This is a multi-purpose room, so this is the main hall of the castle, so this would have been used for all sorts of things. Its main purpose would have been the banqueting room. And so this is where King Robert is entertaining his guests. So, what you will see when you come up that staircase, first of all, is you guys will not be able to see them. Because there was a partition wall across here, wooden wall, to separate where you are, the posh people, with the servants. So these guys are the servants. They're storing all the food and the wine for you guys in this sort of larder, this pantry that you have here, okay? And above our heads, that was the minstrels' gallery. So there's a sort of a mezzanine level that starts about halfway up the wall. There is a post hole there.
I can't believe how thick the
There's
walls
3 more on the other wall that are quite hard to see.
Like 5
And
feet
then they
thick.
come out to about where you are. Okay? So the minstrels do that you get better food as well. And down here, cheap seats, food's not as good. But there, that's good. Okay? Now you might think, what's the royal banquet? Surely the royal banquet must be. Not necessarily, because you don't know what to do later on. Okay? Alright. Any questions so far? Okay, what you guys to do, if you guys want to move up to just before you guys through that doorway, just before the doorway, so stay just beside it.
What?
I'm behind you. Don't worry about it.
I just like to walk this way.
Oh, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. No, I can't do this.
Oh, piss off.
No.
Charlotte, you're fine.
Oh.
Why am I in front?
I'm going to be
Why
sick.
am I in front?
I'm going to die.
Even if
Oh
you're
my God,
married,
it goes so
you're
far.
Charlotte.
It goes up so far. Somebody. No. No. My legs are hurting. It's still going. Mum, I can't do it. No, I can't go there. I can't go there. I can't go there.
Can somebody-
Okay, folks, roll up, yeah. Good.
You seen this? What it used to look like?
Oh God.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can't get that in your head, can you? That's what it was like. Look at the roof.
Sort of people were here.
Yeah.
There was a roof.
That man there's quite hot.
What, this one?
Yeah.
Well, I like that one.
He looks like Matt Hancock.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I like him. Oh yeah, I like him. Because he's a royal.
Oh, that's actually me. That was me in the past.
That's actually Matt Hancock. So.
In a minute, I can tell you that picture's wrong.
What?
Oh.
Do you know what?
That picture's wrong, apparently.
Oh.
Oh,
Why is it here then? It could be replaced. I'll draw another one.
Because the person who put it there doesn't believe me.
okay.
I'll willingly draw another.
Controversy.
You'd rub it out.
Yeah.
No, we don't. Going down.
So we're as high as we go now. So we're now in the royal apartments. Okay, so if you were looking for King Robert, this is where you find him. Again, the room looks very different. The more observant among you may have noticed that the ceiling's missing. Okay? We know where that went, and I'll tell you about that in a bit. Okay, but when you first come up here back in the day, first thing you'd have seen was another one of those partition walls, like the one down there. Okay, so that creates a sort of a, I think it was like an entrance lobby basically, where you'd be met by the King's Steward probably, briefed on how to behave, and then you step through into the main bit of the room where you would see the King. As far as the construction of the missing ceiling, it's just like the one downstairs that we're still on top of. So we're on top of that ceiling, okay? So 650-year-old. So nobody do this, please, all right? Because you never know. I'm a highly trained professional. I can do that. I know where to take this up. So construction's the same, but with the addition of these lovely stone pillars, okay? So that would have made it a little bit special. The picture sort of shows them, but it doesn't really do them justice, to be honest. It doesn't show them off as well as it could. In your mind's eye, if you can extend them, can you see how they split at the top? They're just starting to split. There's enough left that you can see them sort of branching off. So that one there would have gone that way, and that one would have gone that way, and the one on the other end would have gone that way, and so on. So it's almost like a medieval church or a cathedral. There's that sort of look about it. And again, plastered, painted bright colours, all that sort of stuff. So this would have been really quite a magnificent room, not just in this castle, but for miles around. This would have been the most magnificent room in the whole place. Would have exuded power and authority, quite rightly, because this is when the King's here, this is where he's running the country from. Okay, now, that diagram, I mentioned to these guys that I don't like it, because I think the artist missed a trick, because what he's done is he's laid it out like another dining room, like downstairs. Robert almost certainly would be eating here with friends, family, close family, one or two guests, that sort of thing. But that's not its main function. I would say its main function is as the royal bedchamber. Okay? And that would have had probably two main items of furniture. Right about here would have been his desk, where he was working from, okay? If you look at the arches on the walls, can you see there's like two bays? So I think this room has been in two parts. Although it's all open, think of it as being in two parts. The first bit, big fireplace there, and there's a window there as well. That's a bit bigger now than it was back in the day because all the stone's being rubbed away. But fireplace and the window. I'm going to place his desk here. Okay? And we do know that the royal family, Robert and his descendants, sent a number of documents from this castle. That's recorded history. We know that for a fact. We've got the dates and things. His oldest son, John, wrote more than his dad did, actually. So this is probably John's probably the main user of this castle. And they would have been written here and signed by the witnesses. So all you guys that were guests, you now be expected to append your name to these documents as well. And then you'd get your own copy, and then you can't claim that you knew nothing about it when it all goes to be told, basically. So that's what this desk is for. And then the other bit of the room, that's where his bed was. Okay? Not necessarily for sleeping on, though. That bed is often just used as an extension of the office, basically. It's a meeting place. That's my phone, don't worry about it. Rather strange idea, but I understand it comes up from French, so that probably explains it. But that would be like the soft sofa area of a modern office. That's what the bed was, I would understand. And it would probably be taken apart and taken away with the king wherever he goes as well. So some poor so-and-so's got to try and get it down that staircase. Yeah, good luck with that. That's where we get the saying from that we still use today. Sleep tight. Okay, sleep tight. Because the mattress is supported on ropes that zigzag across from one side of the frame to the other. And then they tighten it up when it's complete with pegs. So it's nice and tight, and the mattress sits on top, it's comfortable. So if it's loose, it sags. Anybody who's ever slept in the bed that sags will know how horrible that is. Yeah, so keep the ropes nice and tight, sleep tight. That's where I come from.
Oh.
Throw that in for nothing. Don't charge it extra for that. So there's his bed, I think. So no sign of a dining table as far as I'm concerned. And the bits of architecture that we've got left, and typically I can't take you in there because we're getting the repairs done. But the room that's got, or little opening that's got all the scaffolding in it, that's been identified as the king's private chapel. Okay, in the castle that's called Norwich. So that's kind of personal space there. And then through that archway, if you turn to the right, there's a king's toilets through there. Okay, so all that's left now is a hole in the floor. But you can look down it and you can see out the castle 60 feet below the way that people go past. But that's what that is there. There's a space for a hand washing basin and things like that. So can you see how that's kind of domestic feel to that end of the room? To the left, there's another little room that we don't really know what it is. It's probably a wardrobe or maybe a strong room, that sort of thing. So clothes are often kept near the toilet. Did you know that? You know why? Because of the smell. Yeah.
What do they wipe their bums with?
What?
What do they wipe their bums with? What do they wipe their bums with?
Probably, yeah. That's a good question, actually, because in a lot of medieval times they would use leaves.
Leaves?
Yeah. Up here probably would have had some sort of rags or something. Yeah, but that's a good question.
Sounds comfy.
Yeah. Well, it was to hand if you find the comfort. Yeah. There was a medieval joke. This is a genuine medieval joke, actually, because you would go out into the woods and collect leaves, right, to wipe your bum with. Probably not the king, but more folk would. There was a joke. What's the cleanest leaf in the woods?
Sting nettle.
Yeah, or holly leaf.
A holly leaf.
Stinging out was good, yeah.
I know. I'm intelligent.
But I don't know. I guess if you're the king, whatever you want to use, I guess.
That's true.
So that's through there. And the reason they put the clothes near the toilet is because they stink, the ammonia smell. Moths don't like the ammonia, so clothes.
My hair smells
like stink, but at least you close.
Moths, they don't like the smell of ammonia.
Moths?
That's why there's no moths in my room, because of my hair.
I'm terrified of moths.
If you've got moths in the room, it means you don't smell, so that's a compliment.
Well, I don't have any.
Got
I'm
in
going
my
to spray
wallet.
it all around my room.
Okay, so I just need to tell you where the ceiling went to.
Just about to ask that.
Late 1500s
Yeah.
into the 1600s, the king, James V by then, he's actually granted the use of this castle to one of his mates who lives locally. It's a guy called William Wallace, but it's not that William Wallace. Okay, everyone always nods. It's not that William Wallace, it's a different guy. And they used the castle for about 100 years. And then Mrs. Wallace says, this castle is so last century, darling, we need to modernise it in a new place. So what they do is they build themselves a new castle. There's actually another castle about half a mile through the woods. That's called Ockham's Castle. And they took a lot of stone from here to build their new palace. Not this stuff, not this ugly grey stuff. This is very local. It's everywhere around here. In fact, the hill that we're on is made of the same stuff. It's a big lump of volcanic rock. It's incredibly dense. I mean, it's like steel. You can't do anything with it. You can't carve it or make it pretty. Whatever shape you get when it's quarried, that's what you have to work with. So for doorways, windows, fancy bits like the ceiling, the stairs, you need softer stone, this sandstone, and that's pricey. So they would have saved themselves a fortune by actually taking the stone from here, maybe recarving it a little bit and reusing it over there. So everywhere there's been a doorway or window here, you can see there's stone missing for that reason. I think it's the Wallaces that put that fireplace in there as well. That's much later than that one. That design fits in with the Wallace period. Yes, darling.
What did they like stick the walls together with? Because did they have like concrete then? Or like...
Yeah, it's actually a lot of the modern repairs are. To be honest. So this is modern stuff. This is rubbish, like we build our houses with. They would have used lime mortar, limestone and water. It makes a very. It's quite a caustic paste actually, but it sticks it together. Often mixed with organic material, bits of straw, sometimes bits of cloth, all that sort of stuff. So that's what it is. So the stuff inside the walls way back is probably still the original stuff, but a lot of the facing stuff is now more modern. But it erodes. It's good stuff because it actually allows the building to breathe, whereas the modern stuff doesn't. The water gets trapped inside. But back in the day, the building would sort of breathe, so you don't get running water. Now we get water running down inside it. If it was raining today, in 2 days, the inside of the castle will be wet because it takes 2 days to find its way through. Yeah. So that's where that went. That castle, by the way, is a ruin as well now. So it doesn't work for Nick and I.
What happens when it rains? Does it flood a little bit?
It can, yes, it does. Sometimes, yeah, the downstairs gets a little bit wet, especially if it's windy, because it finds its way in through, and then it runs down the walls.
Yeah.
Here it gets very slippery. But there were drains around and about, but yeah, it does flood a little bit. It gets scar up there where that's where they were, so they took them out before they fell out. So we closed that off. But that's extra accommodation there. And that was added a bit later, so that's a little bit newer than.
You can't do that when you have braces on. You can't choose baby white. It's really annoying.
I wonder if we'll see the ghost back on camera. That would be cool.
So when you guys come down, if you're not confident, please take your time.
Just look at the stairs, mate. Don't look at anything else. Look at your feet as you're going down.
Poor guys remember like what each bit is.
Yeah. Well, I see they do it like multiple times per day.
They've got to sound interested each time they do it.
I thought they like, oh, right.
Can you get a picture of
Yeah, she get one of me. Let's make it down.
Big steps down, and you can see them there.
Nice one.
Oh, yes! I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out. My head's numb.
So dramatic.
No, I'm not joking right now. Ow, it's bleeding, I think. Ow.
All right. Welcome to our present. Sorry about the mess down there. Up until about 3 or 4 days ago, that was a bird's nest in that little window. So that's all left over from a bird's nest.
What kind of bird?
Jackdaw. Nothing very interesting, I'm afraid.
Oh, poor jackdaw.
I won't think that say that about me.
I'm in absolute
Try not to
agony.
fall down that
Time
hole.
to sleep.
You might damage your phone.
Talking of
Okay.
sleep.
Welcome to the room we call the prison. Now, when the castle is brand spanking new, when King Robert has just moved in, say, this is probably not the castle. Sorry, this is probably not the prison. This is very likely quite a nice place to work, actually. We don't know exactly who would have worked here. My guess is it's probably that chaplain that I mentioned earlier when I mentioned the King's Private Chapel. The reason being, again, if you can plant in your mind's eye, plaster this, paint it. Got a nice fireplace right behind you guys. But the clincher for me is this thing here. Now, some people call it a toilet. I disagree again, because
you think about it, it's just not practical. I mean, I've not actually tried using it, but
It's a bit
it
rough.
doesn't look.
I try.
No, you can't. No. So,
Whopper.
yeah, I mean, and the string sheet should be a hole in the floor with a seat. You know, this
How would your bum fit on that?
exactly. So it's high up, it's set way back. And the other thing for me is, see this stone, and there would have been another one here. This is that expensive stuff that they were nicking for the other castle. Okay, this is it, although it's pretty manky now. That same stuff. The hole itself is made of the same stuff as well, and it's been roughed away from here. There would have been a nicely decorated screen, stone screen here. It's got all the signs to me of something that the chaplain would use. You'd have a bowl here, and that bowl would be used to wash the chalices and the goblets after the service. And then I think the little drain, I think, is called a sacrarium in those days, and there's certain rules and regulations about how that has to be sited and how it fits in the fact that it doesn't go onto into the drainage system, it just goes onto the grass, and that was one of the rules. It has to empty onto the ground. So that's what I think it is. I think it probably starts off as a chaplain's office. So our spider pit, because those who are interested, that's where the spiders are down there. That's probably nothing more interesting than the storeroom, probably for those sort of documents that were being written out. It's the same size as this floor plan. The ceiling is much lower though. It's only about that.
Why can't you
high,
go down there?
Basically because the air doesn't circulate, so we're not happy that it's safe for guys to go down there. Plus, we'd be forever cleaning the handrails as well. It's just not practical.
Well, you can't breathe down there.
You can, but it's not circulating that well. So you
okay.
imagine that if there are germs down there,
Yeah.
they get moving away. So they're all down.
European cave spiders.
So. Other ones? Can you see one?
No, it
Okay.
says on the
Okay.
thing. Yeah.
There was a couple that went down and came up, and I was following them out of the castle down the steps, and the lady had a spider. She had long blonde hair, and she had a spider on the back of her hair. What do I do?
Oh my god.